It is my pleasure to welcome Professor Häckel for this discussion on the topic Beyond Digital. Björn is from Augsburg University of Applied Sciences, where he holds a research professorship with a focus on opportunity and risk management in digital value creation networks, and there he is at the Faculty of Computer Science. Besides that, Björn is from the Fraunhofer FIT, specifically the project group Business and Information Systems Engineering, where he has a leading role. And this video is the second video on the topic Beyond Digital. The first was an interview with Maximilian Röttlinger, who already introduced us to the motivation behind the study, What's Beyond Digital? And there he presented and discussed some of the propositions you had there. So in case you didn't watch this first video yet, I recommend that you go back and watch these two videos in order. But anyways, Björn, as mentioned earlier, Max has already introduced us a little bit to the study, and we stopped discussing propositions about technology, and that's the point where I would like to continue with you. So the first question would be regarding technology. You talk about natural collaboration, and what is your perspective? What will this natural collaboration look like beyond the current digital agenda?
Well, Hannah, first of all, thanks a lot for the nice introduction, and it's a pleasure for me to join your lecture and to give you a short insights into our Beyond Digital study. And well, I would start with answering the first question regarding, as you said, natural collaboration. What is behind natural collaboration and how is it enabled, basically? Well, first of all, I would say that natural collaboration is basically enabled by innovative or emerging technologies. Just think about things like Internet of Things, or think about mixed reality, all technologies which are creating some kind of fusion between the virtual and the real world. And as a result, I think that some kind of smooth interaction between individuals, technologies, but also organization can be enabled. And in my opinion, that means that in the future, we can observe that individuals will interact intuitively with technologies, both in the digital world, but also in the physical world. And well, another question is, what do we mean with intuitively? So this is the basic question. And in our study, we thought about intuitively as some kind of technology that is seamlessly embedded in the lives of individuals, all our lives, and that technology also knows well our preferences or the context of our actions, and the technology maybe can even anticipate our preferences and goals and can act autonomously in that way. And well, just to give you examples, think about smart home applications, think about technologies based on natural language processing when you're talking to Alexa at home, for example. And these are all technologies which lead to the fact that the traditional boundaries between individuals or customers and organizations as companies, they are blurring, and I think the same will hold true for the boundaries between the digital and the physical world, which are also blurring in my opinion. And well, I mentioned a few technologies earlier, Internet of Things or mixed reality. I think another technology we had discussed very intensively in our study is, of course, artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence, of course, enables a lot of interesting use cases for companies, but also for individuals. And I think we can already observe that artificial intelligence is able to surpass human abilities in various areas. For example, also in areas of creative thinking, for example, pattern recognition or something like that. I think in future we will be able to observe that AI-based technology will be also usable for knowledge-intensive tasks and in a stronger way than today. And so I strongly believe that in future, individuals and technologies will even work together on tasks that require some kind of creative or lateral thinking. And I think these were the basic ideas that we had discussed or investigated within our study. And I think these are just a few examples of basic element how some kind of natural collaboration could look like.
Okay, thanks for that extensive answer. These are quite a few basic thoughts behind this trend you see there. Now, when we talk about beyond digital, then it's a question what's beyond the current digital agenda of many chief information officers, chief digital officers, digital strategies in the companies and the like. And besides your research and teaching, you already also work with Fraunhofer. You consult and support many companies on their digital journey. So what would be your perspective on what is the maturity level on these different topics? I mean, let's not go through all of them, but in general, over the different trends. Is that already on their agenda? Should it be there? When should you think about these elements you just discussed?
Well, that's quite a good question, and I think it's quite a mixed picture if we think about the status quo in different industry or companies. What I would say, if we observe the digital agenda or the beyond digital agenda in many companies, that most of companies we are working with are dealing with new technologies, and all the companies are looking for what could be sensible use cases for new technologies, like, for example, AI. And what we are aiming to do is just to support companies in identifying the first use cases and helping them to identify where could new technologies be helpful and where could it support your existing business or your processes or the interaction with customers or other companies. But I think for most companies, it's just the status quo that they are, well, aiming to gain knowledge about new technologies, to get a feeling how technologies can be helpful for different use cases. But I think the picture is not that clear, that, for example, companies in the industrial sector have a clear picture in mind where to use artificial intelligence for what use cases and to what extent and so on. Because I think the problem today is, first and foremost, identify the use cases, but also the data. And in many cases, data is a big problem because companies do not know which data they need to use artificial intelligence in a sensible way. It's about data granularity, it's about data quality. We are talking about, well, not integrated systems, which make it difficult to apply such technologies in a good way. So I think, well, most companies are talking about technologies, but it's a long way, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, definitely same experience on my side. Let's move a little away from the technology, more towards the organization. And I mean, you're already related in everything you describe us to the organizations, the companies working with that. But let's continue with this organization. So in your study, you suggest that in the future, organizations will operate in several continuously changing ecosystems. And definitely ecosystems is one of the big hype words, buzzwords in the digital transformation. So which different roles will organizations play in these multiple ecosystems? What's your prediction for the future there?
Well, very good question, Hannah. Well, first of all, let me spend a few words. What do we mean by ecosystems? Because, as you said, it's quite a buzzword in today's world. Everyone is talking about ecosystems and interconnection between different companies. But what we actually mean when talking about ecosystems in our study is that, well, ecosystems describe well, some kind of a constellation of companies that are joining together in fixed or rather loose alliances, and that those companies work in some kind of competition mode, which is just a mixture of collaboration and competition. And why do companies work together in ecosystems? And why do we believe that this is an increasing trend? I believe that it comes from the fact that if I want to serve the changing needs of my customers in future, I think that in many cases, single companies will not have the competencies or the resources to fulfill the needs of their customers. And so I think one basic element of ecosystems and one reasoning for them is that such resources and competencies must be pooled across companies. And in that way, the ecosystem is able to offer innovative products and services that a single companies would not have been able to do on their own. And I think this is the basic reason why companies work together in ecosystem. It has to do with new needs with new perspectives or requirements from the perspective of the customers? Well, as you said, we believe that there are different roles that companies can take in such ecosystems. And I would say in future, we will basically see 3 different roles that companies can take in such ecosystems. I think the first role is the so-called experience orchestrator. The experience orchestrator, I think, will be the company that is close to the customer interface, the direct contact to the customer, and that the experience orchestrator has the job to bundle different services, different products from other firms of the ecosystems, and that the job of the experience orchestrator is to create individualized solutions and to create customer experience at the end. But as I said, close to the customer.
Because with Max, we also already talked about the orchestrated experiences. So,
yep.
So he describes this as one of your propositions. And I mean, it closely links to you need someone who does this orchestration. And then this is one of the roles we see in the ecosystems there. Yeah,
definitely. And the other 2 roles, in my opinion, we have, of course, firms that are the typical product and service provider, and we have the solution integrator. So, of course, the product or service provider provides some components, basically with standardized interfaces. Then we have the solution provider, which well integrates these products and components and provides some well pre-configured solutions. But at the end, individualization is the job of the experience orchestrator. And I think this is the portfolio of the different stakeholders involved. But I think another point which is important when we talk about ecosystems and the different roles of companies. I think one important point is that a company organization is not fixed to one specific role. That means that one and the same company can take different roles in different ecosystems. And of course, this might lead to the fact that we have some kind of ambivalent relationship with other companies, other organizations, because there could be situations where we are partner in one ecosystem, but we could be competitors in another ecosystem. And so I think this will be quite a challenge for the future for companies to figure out which role should I take in which ecosystems, and what are the partners that I should work together in the ecosystem. So I think these are the challenges that we see in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks. So let's move a little away from the organizational level and the ecosystems, more towards the employees. And all of us, to some level, are employees somewhere or will be in the future. So thinking about the employees, what will change? What skills will they need in this world beyond the current digital agenda, which you're thinking about?
This was a topic we have discussed very intensively because it's, of course, interesting for the companies. It's interesting, of course, for the students, for universities. What does it mean for lectures and so on? So a real interesting topic. And of course, from the perspective of a company, the question arises, which capabilities do I need? Which employees do I need to be able to tackle the discussed challenges? So this is a very interesting questions. And at the end, we came up with 3 areas that we think that are mostly important for employees in the future. The first one is leadership. Mm-hmm. Second one is innovation. And third one is, not surprisingly, technology. So what's behind these 3 different areas? Well, first of all, when we talk about leadership, in my opinion, has a lot to do with managing projects in a good way. And I think in the future, we will observe that projects are carried out along the product, service, or experience life cycle. And in my opinion, leadership will mean that we have employees that are able to manage these projects in a really good way, and that these employees are also able to support the transformation of the company over the years, because it's clear digitalization, or even beyond digital, it's a process that has continuous elements. So there are different waves of transformation, and so I think we need employees that are able to support these continuous transformation. But that's the point of leadership, strongly connected to project management skills, in my opinion. The second area is innovation. And the question is, what is the role of employees when we talk about innovation? In our study, we discussed that the main job of employees in the future could be on non-disruptive innovation. And now, of course, the question is, what is behind non-disruptive innovation? Because there are different definitions in literature and so on. So there's a different understanding of what is meant with disruptive or non-disruptive innovation. But in our study, well, we defined non-disruptive innovations as well innovations that are able to awaken new customer needs. For an example, think about the first Apple smartphone and the ecosystem that was created around this Apple smartphone. So there was basically no customer before had the need to say, oh, I need a smartphone. It was just a completely new topic, but which created a completely new ecosystem. And so that means that, and that's the reason why we call it non-disruptive innovation, because these innovations do not lead to the fact that competitors are being pushed, being forced out of the market, because we are creating products or services that are not even offered yet. So this is the point, and this is the, in my opinion, the difference to disruptive innovation, because if we are talking about disruptive innovation, well, that means we are doing basically the same, but for example, at a cheaper price. And so we are, for example, then pushing out competitors out of the market. And why is this important? Because we believe that employees will basically focus on non-disruptive innovation. It becomes clear that if I talk about creating or awaken new needs, that this is something which cannot be tapped through technology, in my opinion, because I think for such completely new things, we still need the human brain. Status quo, I think it cannot be substituted by technology, and so we suggest or propose that such non-disruptive innovation is carried out by humans. This is the point, innovation. Well, and then the third one was technology. Well, in technology, in my opinion, it means technology, we need people that are able to orchestrate exactly the different roles or perspectives we were talking before. Think about, we have products, we have services, and we have the bundled experience. And at the end, from a technology perspective, we need people, we need experts, domain experts that are able to orchestrate these different views based mainly on an integrated technology stack. And we also need people, technology experts that are able to figure out what are the opportunities of new emerging technologies. It relates exactly to what I said at the beginning, because if I want to use technologies in a sensible way for the company, I need the experts that are able to judge a new technology and to identify how can it be useful in certain settings. So these are the three elements: leadership, innovation, technology, and where we see the roles of future employees. But of course, it can only be a very condensed view, because of course there are a lot more perspectives, but these were the three categories we were talking about.
Okay, yeah, I mean, as always, there are more fine-grained details below that and others beside it and so on. But on the other hand, it's also valuable to pin it down to a few noticeable key things. So I fully understand this with leadership, innovation, technology. And that already leads me to my last question. Now, this was a perspective on future skills of the employees. If you think about current students, university students, in management, in information systems, in business, but also potentially in computer sciences. So what would you advise them to best navigate this world? I mean, probably it somehow relates now again to leadership, innovation, technology, but also taking a broader look at your entire study and the different propositions and fields of actions you have there. What would you advise students to do for being prepared for this world?
Well, very interesting question, but of course I could imagine very important questions for all of you. Well, what would I advise? Well, if I try to combine the different perspectives I was talking about, I would say the first important element is think about to develop yourself in the direction of some kind of a interdisciplinary profile. What do I mean with interdisciplinary profile? Well, actually, I mean that you as a student, you have the opportunity, and you should use this opportunity to focus on interface topics. Think about interfaces between technologies. Think about interfaces. What do new technologies mean for ecosystems? What does it mean for new business models? What are the economic benefits of such new technologies? So I think for you students in the future, I think it will be more and more important that you have a profound understanding of information technology, but also on the business side. So, and I think this is a very important element. People who will be able to play a mediating role between these two perspectives, the information technology and the business side, I believe that those people will be in high demand in the labor market. And so I think interdisciplinary profiles are a good advice, in my opinion. If I talk about interdisciplinary profiles, the next thing is, that comes into my mind is think about continuous learning. As I said before, digital transformation is a continuous task for companies. And I think the same holds true for the future employees. And so I'm strongly convinced that continuous lifelong learning is important, and also gaining experience in various operational functions, in different roles, maybe also in different industries. I think that these elements will be an integral part of future working life and will be very important also in your later job. And so this would be the second point for me. And well, maybe one third point that comes into my mind is in future, not only the methodological skills will be important. I think also soft skills will be very important. Think about leadership that I pointed out before, because as Hannah said, how can I navigate in such a complex or dynamic world? I think to navigate successfully in such dynamic environments, I think it will be extremely important to have also strong social skills, social competencies. And at the end, I think exactly the combination of excellent methodological skills as well as soft skills, I think this is the key to be successful in the future.
Okay. Interdisciplinary profiles, lifelong learning, cumulative experience, and a combination of both methods and social skills. I think that's pretty good advice. So Björn, thanks a lot for your insights. Thanks a lot for talking to me.
Thanks a lot for your invitation. It was a pleasure to me.